Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is September 30, 2024. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here for I don't know, it could be part 5, it could be part 2. Who knows? One never knows, does one? Bill Kuhns, where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm in Montreal.
Bill, it's such an honor and a pleasure. I know you've been working on a book called Marshall McLuhan Machine for how many years?
I started it in 1987.
87. Way to go. Okay. And, it's funny because I did the etymology on the word machine. Comes from device, trick, structure. That's the noun. The verb machine means to decide or resolve. I love that you picked that word machine. What in the heck is
machine? The marshalling machine.
What the marshalling ing?
The McLuhan marshalling machine.
There you go.
Marshall.
Yeah, in the word the Marshall McLuhan.
The McLuhan marshalling machine.
The Marshall.
A way of accessing his thoughts on any subject.
Yeah. Okay. So now since 87. And then you called our session today a Vidterville view. I like that.
A video, a combination of video and interview.
Yeah. But then you asked me, well, let's talk about my book. And I says, sure. And I says, well, what are the strategies? I know how to mispronounce the word. I got a good education. But I said that's not really the word. We want to have a game plan because game implies play. And strategies comes from science of war, and we're hardwired for cooperation. And Marshall named his great book, War and Peace in the Global Village. And I asked Eric, I said, if you had to say your philosophy of your life in a one word after the word the, like Kubrick's The Shining, Joyce's The Wake, Eric said mine would be The Playground. And I says, well, what would have been Marshall's? And he said, same thing, The Playground. So this is, there's so much in there, the ground, figure ground, playground. What is your goal in working on this book since 87? What is the goal of your book?
Well, let me give you some context for it. I believe that McLuhan's role in the next 2,500 years will be very analogous to what Aristotle's was for the last 2,500 years. I think we're at the birthing point of a new civilization, and he laid out its terms better than anyone. And the goal of the marshalling machine is to find ways into his thinking and his thought, which was very compressed and very aphoristic.
Yeah.
Find ways through that, pathways that you wouldn't find reading it from the book's page to page. These are electronic pathways where one insight can lead you to other insights, and you can create your own chain of associative insights from his work. And the best way to use the marshalling machine is with word search and going after your own thoughts on some subject that you want to align his best thoughts on. So that's basically what I'm after.
Yeah, that's what you're after.
It has to be available online. It has to be something. It's not for a book. It may wind up in a book, but it's designed to be electronic and hyperlinked.
So important what you said, because studying Frank Zappa for all these years, and I know your son's into Frank Zappa, is there's a website that has every printed interview, and it's amazing because I want to go, oh, what did Frank say about computers? So I can just type in computers, with quotes or something, and it will hyperlink right to it. It's called power browsing. Whoop, right to it. And so your book being online is important because and then the sad thing about the Zappa world is all his audio interviews are not transcribed yet. And that some kid, maybe your son, can do some fancy coding algorithm where every audio, and that's what should be done with Marshall too, every audio should be put into text so that we can word search, power browse.
Power browse. I love that phrase, power browsing, and that's
Yeah,
basically what I see the McLuhan marshalling machine allowing you to do with his thinking.
yeah. Well, then
And
you
by
then
the way,
what
by
all
the
you
way, there are now AI programs that are very, very adept at transcription.
yeah.
One of them is called Otter, is in the animal otter that slides down mud banks into lakes and so on. So the need the process of getting Frank Zappa's interviews into print form is not that difficult.
Yeah, that's the otter, the animal slides down the mud banks. That's because mud is the fifth element. But let's stay focused here, because Bill, I'll go off on a million tangents really fast. But you asked me, well, how do I get this? I mean, you want to just, why don't you put it up online for free right away? Or you want to say, hey, I've worked my butt off on this for years. I should get a little compensation. So, I mean, all I would say in that regard is you've got to put it on TikTok, Instagram, and whatever's going to be after TikTok and Instagram that is going to swoop kids into using these platforms to investigate McLuhan. I mean, it's as simple as that, I guess.
A lot of the aphorisms lend themselves to little animations and little cartoons.
Yeah.
If there's a really good graphic artist who watches this show, I'd be delighted to hear from them. I'm looking for a good graphic artist to work with
Yeah.
to enliven some of this stuff and make it more palatable and visual.
Well, I would say the game plan is be playful. Welcome to your Bill playground. Just put out on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram and X a picture of you saying anybody can take this aphorism and make an animation of it right now. And here is the source, the marshalling machine. Go for it, And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then you're going to be starting to create a buzz before it happens.
That is exactly the idea. That's what I'd love to see happen.
You got to create a buzz by doing it, by putting it out free to the world, one or two aphorisms with your cover photograph and your a little, caricature of you or your website, and you just got to you've got to go. I mean, in the words of the great Irwin Corey, Professor Irwin Corey, protocol takes precedence over procedure.
Hey there, I like that one.
And if we don't change direction soon, we'll end up where we're going. And one more, Irwin Corey. Beauty is in the behind of the beholder. Okay, here we go. I want to dive right into it, Bill. Can you forget to die? Okay, I set this up in all my podcasts with a Hollis Frampton quote. Narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Okay, that's sort of a cute quote. It says a lot. Hey, narrative is born out of the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Okay, that's an intriguing thought. an aphorism. Then I follow it up with a question I found somewhere. Can you forget to die? So I probably asked you this before, but let's just start with that. Can you, Bill, forget to die?
I can forget that I have to die.
Right. Okay.
It's the
Now
one
that's
we
what
forget sometimes.
a lot of people say it that way. Some people go, yes, I can forget to die. And some people go, no. And most people are puzzled because they don't know if I mean it literally or metaphorically. And so you kind of took it more literally. Can I forget that I'm going to die? Well, how do we know you're going to die? You might never die because your, your body might die, but the laugh of Bill will last forever on YouTube. Your family and loved ones will remember you for till they die, and then their family and loved ones will remember you. So you will never die. But this is the question to you, Bill, in context of all your great McLuhan study and play. What's the difference between literal and metaphorical?
I'm not sure there is one. But I'll tell you something about the death thing you were just talking about. I used to play sitcoms to my students, and I would say, do you realize the laughter track you're hearing belonged to the dead? These are all laughs that were recorded in the 1930s and 1940s and taped together into a kind of organ where somebody sits down and plays old laugh tracks. So the laughter you hear watching a sitcom has been seeded. Some of it's from the audience, but a lot of it's from the dead. You're hearing the laughter of the dead.
That is so heavy. You got ESP, Bill, because you should hear what's going to follow. So that's fun because you're not sure if there's a difference, but it's funny because literally we mean, can you forget to die? Okay, you want to take that literally? No, you can't forget to die because we've been brainwashed to believe we're all going to die. Metaphorically, it's like, well, it's more poetic and what we can read into it. But Marshall said all words are metaphorical. So the word literal is metaphorical. So that's what you mean by there's no difference.
All language is metaphor. Yeah.
But what? But even the word literal is metaphor?
Yes.
But it's metaphor for what?
It's metaphor for non-metaphorical.
Give me a high five. That is the best answer I ever heard. Okay, so you got ESP, and this is why. There's an article that came out in couple years ago, what a sleep specialist has to say about the dreaminess of Finnegan's Wake. Okay, fun little answer, a fun little article title. Dr. Jay Wu, a speech specialist at Duke University, says sleeping is actually a very, very active state of the brain. And there's a lot of life affirming things happening. For example, the growth hormones are being released. Your brain is literally refreshing itself when you sleep. So, in a way, you're not so much dying as getting maybe a little younger in a way, or getting a little healthier. Sleeping is almost like a tiny bit of a reversal of death. So any thoughts on that? Because we know Finnegan's Wake was had a huge impact on Marshall. And basically Joyce is getting rid of the apostrophe and saying, hey, all you Finnegans, wake up. Figure out the hidden psychic effects of radio, electricity, and books. What do you think of this line? Sleeping is almost a tiny bit reversal of death.
Well, they're both modes of conscious, unconscious. We don't know what death is in terms of consciousness. But I had a friend who had a near-death experience or a real death experience where he remembered progressing into a vortex of light after his heart had stopped. and they revived him 30 minutes later. And he said it was the most powerful experience he'd ever had. And his life changed after that quite a bit.
Yeah. Amazing. Because it is, there's another question I have. Your hunch, New Yorker magazine recently said, can the baby have dreams inside the womb, or does the human have to be outside the womb and have experience to be able to dream? What's your
Haven't they recorded the wavelengths, the waveforms of dreaming in utero infants? I believe they have.
I know. So you're saying your hunch is yes, the baby can dream without having real life experience
Our
outside the womb.
dreams may not be so much a reflection of real life experience. They may be a source of it.
Dude, you nailed that one, because look at how could a baby ever come out of the womb and say, dude, you should have seen my dream last night, and then it can't start talking for 3 or 4 years. So, or when does a baby start talking in words? How could it ever explain dreams? And how can anyone ever explain a dream anyways? They're unexplainable.
I think one of the downstream benefits of AI is we're going to be able to look inside other people's consciousness and share consciousness with anybody, everybody. The line from Joyce in The Wake, "Here comes everybody." Well,
Yeah.
that's what's coming with AI. AI is going to open doors to that. And one of the things we'll be able to do is learn the consciousness of a newborn infant, or a preborn infant, an infant still in the womb.
Yeah.
We'll be able to share in that whatever's going on in the consciousness of that creature, or for that matter, an orca, or a cobra, or a gorilla, or a lion. We'll be able to stop having to deal with these creatures from the outside, where we film them and we look at them as separate creatures from us, and we'll be able to join them from the inside and share whatever their experiences and sensory and conscious awareness is.
Brilliant.
That was one of McLuhan's big ideas of the future of the computer, and I think he's onto something.
Brilliant, Bill. We're going to get into AI. Hold on there. You're jumping the gun, dude, because I want to go knee deep in the swamp muck of AI, but not quite yet. I wanted to tell you about the being in the womb. That's Robin Williams called it womb service.
Womb service.
And in Captain Beefheart says, I'm not coming out. He came out and he goes, let me back in. Like, back to Robin Williams, he says, we spend 9 months trying to get out of the womb and the rest of our life trying to get back in. But here's Bill, what you brought up on. I just wanted to talk about some binaries just for a couple minutes, because, is there a difference between literal and metaphorical? You handled that well. This is one that Marshall posed as a question. I'm sure it's in your book. And I've been asking people this for 1,000,000 years. What do you think of this question that Marshall McLuhan asked? How about technologies as the collective unconscious and art as the collective unconsciousness? So he's trying to say maybe there's something difference between technology and art. Maybe the art is the painting and the technology is the oil paints and the brush and the human's hand swishing the paint around. Who knows? So the difference between art and technology, Marshall's suggesting that technologies are collective unconscious and art is collective unconsciousness. What in the heck did he mean, or what do you think he meant by that?
I don't know that quote. Do you know where he said it?
No, but we'll source it out. But just go to your own hunch. What's the difference between conscious and consciousness?
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. How about technologies as the collective unconscious and art as the collective unconsciousness? So I usually break it down. Drop the words "un" and just tell me first, what's the difference between conscious and consciousness?
That's a good. I don't think there's anybody who could answer that question. I think the issue of what is consciousness is the most prevailing and befogging question out there right now.
Yeah, you know this. I just got this book 2 days ago. Woo, woo, woo. You know
Yeah,
this?
that sort of started the whole split brain
Yeah.
argument, didn't it?
But that's what he's trying to build. Okay, then skip that part, Bill. What's the difference between technology and art?
I'm not sure according to McLuhan, there's not all that much of a difference, except
Yeah.
the artists are trying to figure out where we are in time and what's going on around us in the environment, and the technologists are busy building the environment.
Oh, they're
They don't
built.
think of they don't try to perceive it. They're just interested in creating it and altering it and taking
Yeah.
advantage of the new changes in it.
Yeah, so that's the collective unconscious. There no awareness. And art is the collective unconsciousness. You said it, environment. I think ness means environment that it creates, the hidden psychic effects.
Yeah.
Here's the next one, Bill, because again, it's stupid binary, but I spoke with a guy who's taught writing for 40 years, Jonah Raskin. You know, he worked with everybody, Tim Leary, Doris Lessing. He's got a resume as deep and rich as yours. And I said, he's told me, someone told me narrative doesn't lie. So what's the difference between narrative and story?
Narrative is what a story gets right, and story is what a narrative gets wrong. I think
Okay,
a good story is also a good narrative, but that's not the only thing that's going on.
right, but it's not form and content, because I was thinking, well, if it's form is narrative and content is story, form can't lie. It's just pen on paper, right? But
Right.
you said it differently. Narrative is what story gets right. Story is what narrative gets wrong.
I think the story is in Hollywood where producers are too lazy to read the books that they buy to make films out of, they hire somebody to write a précis of the story for them. And that's the story. But that flimsy description of what happens now, what happens to whom, et cetera, et cetera. Those I forget what they're called. Sort of
Pitches or well,
pitches,
they're called sizzle reels now.
sizzle.
I
Yeah,
love that. Sizzle reel.
a sizzle description of a novel is so far removed from the actual novel, usually, that
Yeah.
it doesn't capture the integrity, the flavor, the characters, the germ of what made that writer write that novel. Otherwise, the writer would have written a sizzle piece.
Yeah, but Bill, you nail it. And every piece of writing you've ever sent to me, I've been truly enlightened, because there was one where you said, "What's the most important literature?" And Marshall goes, "Ad man." Which what is the question? Something like that. But it's so funny because people hate advertising. They love to hate it, and they don't realize it's some of the most creative cave art of our time and blah blah blah.
Once upon a time, it was creative. In the '60s, when
Yeah.
McLuhan wrote about it, in the '50s, there was real creativity going on in advertising. That's no longer the case.
Oh, I disagree, Bill. Watch the trailer for the new Maria Callas film starring Angela Jolie. Dude, it is like 2 minutes, and she walks up on the stage, no sound. The pianist, rehearsal pianist goes, okay, are you ready? No sound, no flashy edits. And she goes, no, not today. And then she walks off. So here's the greatest singer of all time. You got 2 minutes or 1 minute to sell the film, the biopic with the movie star. No singing, no flash edits. That's Thelonious Monk. The loudest sound in the universe is silence. She just nailed it. Not today. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. Maybe it's not as good, but that's also reminds me of that line to the admin, sell the sizzle, not the steak. You know, so you want to create, it's Mallarmé, sell, produce the effect. Don't paint the painting. That's Marshall got that. But Marshall said one that I really want you to respond to, Bill. The future of the book is the blurb.
Right.
Well, is that a good or a bad thing? Most people, I mean, I watch a YouTube video for 2 seconds and go, I'm out of here. Boom. I just give it 2 or 3 seconds. People go, well, give it at least a minute.
7 seconds is what I've heard is the limit that some people will take to watching anything. Any single thing.
The industry standard for music is 10 seconds. My friend is in the music business, he says 10 seconds. But I'm saying, is that Marshall saying the future of the book is a blurb good or bad? I know he's not trying to make a value judgment, but
he was describing post-literacy. And post-literacy, the eye attention for any reading matter is about as long as a headline. Yeah. I look at the feed on Facebook, the way the images and the text roll past. How much text will you take at a time on anything in the Facebook feed? Not much.
Yeah.
And the future of text is the blurb.
Yeah, but you grew up with books like me. I grew up in front of a TV, and I know how to read Cliff Notes and make myself sound like I know what I'm talking about at a cocktail party when people are talking about books. I can fake my way through it, but I can't read.
You're not the only one. McLuhan did that a lot, by the way. He would cite writers he'd never read, but he did know how to access their best quotes and get the sizzle of them. And he could lay out the sizzle of all kinds of people from the Renaissance, from the Middle Ages, from the Greek era, from the Roman era. In fact, his thesis, the place of Thomas Nash and the learning of his time, which is really a history of the conflict between logic and analogy, as the dominant engine of thought in the life of the West, uses that a lot. He quotes people that he has barely or only tangentially read. And this was something he never admitted out loud, but it's conspicuous once you get close to him working with the sources.
Beautiful, Bill. So you're saying that is a binary, logic and analogy? That's a binary?
He said it. Yeah. He said it. He said there's 2 basic engines of thought, and one is analogy. And the beauty of analogy is that it connects, and it tries to connect everything to everything. It's always building bridges. Logic is the opposite. Logic is splitting things and building walls between things and creating subdivisions and subdivisions of any subject. So that he saw the history of wars in the West as a history of the effects of logic.
Wow.
Logic, of course,
That
was
was
steered by the book, by the alphabet and by printing and by the book and the dominance of the I. I ran into a quote the other day where he said the I is the source of logic
yeah.
because it separates and subjugates and organizes.
It's really good. We're going to get into that now. You've got major ESP. You're like my outline. You like saw my outline through the Zoom camera onto my notepad,
I
and
did
you're
not. I did not. I did not see it.
yeah, I know you tricksters like Milton Erickson and Houdini. You guys know you deny it, but anyways, it's so much fun being here with you, Bill, because I wanted to ask you that split he did between logic and analogy. Did he learn that at Cambridge or before? Like when he studied with the new criticism guys, what did they? How did they change him? Was it that, or
They,
was he?
they sent him back to the history of rhetoric because new criticism is basically rhetoric. It's the study of how a speech achieves its effects, how a poem achieves its effects, how any work of literature achieves its effects, which is something he applied later on to advertising and then all of technology. So the new criticism was really his introduction to the history of rhetoric, which is part of the trivium, which was the subject of his thesis. The trivium is rhetoric, logic, and
Grammar?
grammar. Thank you. Sorry.
Don't be sorry, man. I
Brain
love it.
freeze.
But do you think he was doing that logic analogy split before Cambridge or post Cambridge?
Oh, I think he learned a lot about it at Cambridge. I think his basically McLuhan's entire career was an effort of self-understanding. He was trying to understand his own makeup. And he looked out, and when he looked out onto the world, what he saw was a lot of his own makeup, his own thinking, his own, what made him different. He always thought in metaphors and analogies. It was the native way of his mind. Norman Mailer once said, I've never met anyone whose thinking was entirely by analogy or metaphor. He said that of McLuhan.
Heavy. Yeah, you can see Marshall at his best for 30 minutes in that debate on YouTube with Mailer, because Mailer's like this uptight, and Marshall's like Mr. Cool. Yeah, whoa. It's like it shows you how fun Marshall had in life, and Mailer's like shooting his wives and going nuts, and give me a break. Okay, but I love that you saying, because I was going to actually ask you this question. Is Marshall's main thing in his whole everyness causality? Is his search for causality, or is that different from what you just said? Self-understanding, trying to figure out or display his own makeup. Is that close to causality or different?
Well, causality becomes a facet of that particular, how shall I put it, hexagonal, multidimensional way of thinking about everything that he did. His mind was constantly capturing things the way light is captured by a diamond.
Yeah.
Lots of directions and lots of colors flaring out from it.
Really beautiful. Bill, also what you just said reminded me of a step back as to what Edgar Allan Poe invented: reasoning backwards. Effects precede causes. And he spawned the symbolist, and then Marshall said it. If you don't study the symbolist and all of Joyce, you won't get me. And most people don't get McLuhan because they haven't read all of Joyce and they haven't studied the symbolist. So the symbolists get this thing I already mentioned, like Mallarmé, produce the effect, not the painting so much. It's the effect you're after. What did Marshall learn from Poe in saying this word, effects precede causes? Because most people go, I don't get it. Effects precede causes. Like, no, we experienced TV by looking at Seurat paintings because it was mosaic with dots on paintings. And then we had electronic pointillism in TV. So we already experienced TV by looking at Seurat paintings. That was the effect precede the cause. Any thoughts on effects precede causes?
I'm looking for the effect and trying to find the cause hiding behind it.
No, your silence was the best. People go, there must have been a glitch in the Zoom. But it is funny because you know who understands effects precede causes? My physics friend. He's a doctor of physics, and he gets it because in science they understand that effects precede causes. Most people go, what do you mean?
Well, if you're doing any work with subatomic particles, you've got to follow Heisenberg's principle, which is that your presence observing something is influencing the thing you're observing. I once wrote a satire about a filmmaker whose entire career was premised on Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and this filmmaker kept saying, whatever whatever you're looking at, you're not looking at it because you're looking at it.
Is this a short film or a feature you wrote?
It's a book length. I can send you the book.
Okay, so you wrote a fiction book about
I wrote a fiction book about a satire about a filmmaker. What you're looking at isn't what you're looking at because you're looking at it.
Okay, what's the name of that book?
It's called the Libby Diaries. Never published. But I can send you the
Wait, you mean it was never published?
Never published, no.
My God, when you die, your wife better start publishing all this stuff. Okay,
Got
Bill,
a lot of unpublished stuff.
Yeah, okay, Bill, what's the difference between art and science?
Science is based on the repeatable. Art is based on the unrepeatable.
That
would be my first thought of the difference.
Okay, that's the most important answer I ever had, because I've been asking that. A lot of people go, there is none or very little. But here's Cocteau. Art is science made clear. Any comment?
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, here's Marshall. When we push our paradigms back, we get history. When we push them forward, we get science.
That means when you create new paradigms, you're creating new science. The quantum revolution, quantum mechanics, was a step into the unknown because it turned the rules of causality and observer-based science on its head. It made the observer a complicit part of any experiment, so that you could not separate the observer from the experiment in the way you could with previous science. And that's a major new paradigm. In fact, I think it's the future paradigms. All science from now on is going to have to heed what was discovered in quantum mechanics. They're already having this problem with quantum computers and trying to design ways in which they can harness the presence of an observer or an operator at the computer as part of the warp and woof of what goes on in any process going on in a quantum computer. You can't separate them. in the way you could with a conventional present computer. So, but
Brilliant.
that belongs to what I call the next civilization. The
Yeah.
civilization being born right now. We are, McLuhan says, we are the primitives of a new civilization. And I think that's one of his lines you can take literally.
Yeah. That's a literal. That is really good. You said that, Bill. I appreciate how concise you are and how articulate you are. I really thank you. I learn a lot every time I'm with you. And what you just said reminded me of Yeats. Isn't it the poet who said, "How do you tell the dance from the dancer?"
That was Yeats, correct.
So is that pre what you just told me or post? Like, did Yeats feel that happening and made it into a poem, or he made it into a poem and then the scientists figured it out in
I think
scientific?
McLuhan would give the symbolist credit for being part of the same new perceptive universe that quantum mechanics belongs to.
Yeah.
In fact, one of his most interesting projects in his lifetime was something he called, I think I told you about this last time, something he called the 20th century Baedeker, where he studies ways in which science, in which artists precede science in major shifts of perception. And that would be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gave me an idea for a new lecture workshop. Symbolism as quantum mechanics.
Yeah, yeah, the two have much in common.
Yeah. Here's Chomsky, Bill. Your thoughts. We learn more about ourselves from literature than from science.
Well, literature is the gateway to our values and our soul. Science is merely a tapestry of semi-discovered things about the world around us.
So are you saying you don't agree with Chomsky, or you
Totally
do?
agree. Totally
You
agree.
that we learn more from literature than from science about ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like Mallarmé says, everything ends up in a book. Okay, here's the beauty of aphorisms, the beauty of your research from 87. And I think Marshall nailed it the best, is not to just settle for an aphorism and go, wow, I had an insight from that. I had an epiphany from reading that aphorism, is to reword it and take it farther. Like Umberto Eco took from Newton, to stand on the shoulders of the aphorism and look farther with it. So Marshall took Robert Browning, "Our reach should exceed our grasp," or "What is heaven for?" and reworded it to, "Our reach should exceed our grasp," or "What is a metaphor?"
That's one of
Which
his better ones. Yeah, that's a
that's
good
fun.
one.
So here's Arthur Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Right off the bat, any thoughts on that line?
I think he's done better than that line. I like his jibe that maybe our goal on life is on this earth is not to worship God, but to create Him.
Oh my God, our goal is not worship, but to create God. That is good. Okay, and I agree. He's got better ones, but that one got thrown around a lot to the.
That's part of his three rules of technology. I forget the other two, but
You mean the goal on God one is his three
no,
rules,
no,
or
no. The first one you quoted, the
the first one
sufficiently.
I quoted?
The other ones go like this: that any ask any professor of any subject in science what can be done in the future, and if they say it can't be done, it probably will be done. That's one of them, and I
Yeah, and
forget. That's the first one.
then it's good to forget the third, because then someone can Google it and this will become active participation in our Zoom. But
The,
that's funny, because what you're saying is That's Schopenhauer. First you say I disagree, then you ridicule it, and then you go, I knew that all along.
Even Clark misses some boats. In Profiles of the Future, he said there's absolutely no way that a spaceship traveling to a far solar system could communicate with us short of the weeks or months involved in sending a message back.
Yeah.
And he was not aware of the revolution in quantum mechanics that discovered that two particles that are born together stay in touch with each other no matter what distance they travel. And the potential of using that superposition, which I think is what it's called, between those two particles, the potential of using that as a communication device in the future is a scientific well-grounded scientific idea. So we could have instant communication between you and me if you were on Mars, or if I was on Saturn, anytime that becomes feasible.
Well, we are. It's men are from Venus, women are from Mar Vista. But you really evoked the great McLuhan one. Message to deep sea diver from the boat. Surface at once.
The surface right now, the boat is sinking.
That's as good as, and you wait till you hear what's coming up. That's as good as beautify a junkyard. It's beautify something, throw out
beautify
something.
The world. Give something beautiful to a junkyard.
Okay, here's how a couple sci-fi writers worded Arthur Clarke. Warren Ellis. Any sufficiently advanced civilization is indistinguishable from its nature. So again, he's taking Arthur's any sufficiently technology is indistinguishable from magic, and he's changing a few words. Any thoughts on that? Any sufficiently advanced civilization is indistinguishable from its nature.
Well, we're taking human nature and we're about to run it through all kinds of grinders. I think that the singularity that Kurzweil writes about, when supercomputers are somehow interlaced with the human neural cortex, and we grow a fourth brain, whether it's a thinking cap or whether it's something you slide into the skull or however it's attached to us. It may look like earrings. That was McLuhan's idea. He said it's going to look like a hearing aid.
Yeah.
So the potential of doing that, or of growing new limbs, or of growing new senses, all of these take us further away from nature of what we are, or what we're born with, or what our ancestors were born with. These are all going to be part of a species that Yuval Harari says that in 100 years, our great-grandchildren are not going to be recognizable as humans.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
In that sense,
yeah.
In that sense, we're all the more advanced we are in technology, the further away we are from our nature.
Right, but is that what I don't really get when Marshall says the new nature. I felt he said like the cartoon I saw where the kids coming out of the mother's womb, the doctors are helping the birthing process, and the kid is already on a cell phone. Is that the new nature? What does he mean? When does Marshall mean when he says new nature?
Well, he said he had several phrasings for it. One of my favorites is in the Playboy interview where he says, "New technology creates new man."
Yeah.
And another phrasing he gives it, and this is in the audio to Medium is the Massage, is first we create our tools, then our tools recreate us.
Yeah. He got that from Winston Churchill. Churchill said, we shape our buildings, then they shape us.
That's right.
And,
That's right. Yeah.
and then Marshall just changed it again. Okay, here's Bruce Sterling. Any sufficiently technology is indistinguishable from its garbage. What do you think of that one?
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah, I love it. Being a dumpster diver, finding McLuhan books in the garbage is the most important thing. Like, why would anyone throw this out? Here's a Marshall in 69, interior landscape. For James Joyce has solved numerous problems which science has not yet formulated as problems.
Well, in that same essay, he says something which I think is one of the most remarkable things he ever said, which is that the way that archaeologists can summon previous civilizations or cultures from the detritus left behind, he said you can look at any language, any living language, and look at the corruptions and the additions and the variations in that language over the years, and you can reassemble the people who spoke that language in those different times by studying the language as a repository that's constantly recording and reflecting those worlds. I think that's amazing insight.
Yeah. No, it's good because Tony Conrad, great artist, said artists break rules that haven't even been made yet.
That's their job.
That's their job.
Make those rules and then break those rules.
Yeah.
And sometimes science catches up with those rules.
Yeah.
It says this is a rule of the universe, and the artist is going, ah.
Well, here's Einstein. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science, which is funny because science etymologically means the fact or state of knowing. So, Auden said the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. So what's Marshall's take on mystery? Does he talk about this? Is this the most beautiful thing we experience is the mysterious? That's Einstein. What do you think Marshall would say to that?
Marshall found mystery in everything, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
He could look at an ashtray and speak about it in all sorts of ways that you would never imagine you could get that much out of an ashtray. In 1966, the literary critic of the New Yorker, my mind is stumbling again.
We'll look it up, whoever it is. Yeah, what did he say?
He said he had lunch with McLuhan in Toronto. They went to a posh restaurant. And after that lunch, this guy was blown away. He said it was like having lunch with William Blake. Every perception he had, everything he said was utterly fresh. It was not something I would have heard from any other living soul.
Yeah.
It had to do with things like the cadences in conversation, how they had a musical flow to them, and the waiters moved in a ballet to that flow of music, things like that.
Yeah.
That he'd never heard anything like this before.
It's like the topless waitresses with the San Francisco writer. And Marshall says, they're wearing us.
George Steiner.
George Steiner is that guy.
Yeah, that was George Steiner I was quoting a minute ago about the lunch with McLuhan.
That is good. And then Herb Cain is the other guy in San Francisco. Where
that topless day. restaurant thing. They're wearing us.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. He compares him to William Blake because Blake says we become what we behold. I mean, that's what, that's what you call it, named his book. Edmund Carpenter named his book, We Become What We Behold. That's basically Marshall User's content, isn't it? Is that the same
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very much.
Yeah. But what you said, Bill, too, reminded me of this one. French archaeologist Paul Venet. Science finds no truths. It discovers unknown facts that can be interpreted 1,000 ways.
Again, silence. I don't know what to say to that.
That's good. I look at, I love that you don't have to say anything if you don't want, but I'm curious because this to me sounds romantic or kind of mystical. Milan Kundera, he wrote a book called The Unbearable Likeness of Being.
One of my favorites.
Okay, here's what he says. This is why I love writing, because the character I'm writing about can go further than I can. Well, good luck. Your pen writes a character on a piece of paper. How can that character go further? That sounds like poetic and romantic, doesn't it?
You can get that character to do things you would never do. You
How?
can put that character in perils that you would never want to face. You could turn that character into a devil or an angel. Are you ready to be a devil or an angel? You already are a devil.
Well, Bill, that's really good because Steve Martin loves to talk about David Mamet. Art is a product of the unconscious mind. Don Preston played keyboards for Zappa. He says, don't think when you're playing music. It's like, yeah, right. How do you not think? You have this knowledge of musical structure and theory and technique in your head. How do you abandon all that?
You turn it over to your unconscious, your muscles, your muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's like what Miles Davis said, don't play what you know, play what you don't know.
That is good. Play what you don't know. But how do you know you don't know it if you don't know it?
You invent it on the spot.
Yeah.
I think one of the effects of AI is going to be a huge growth in the industry of improvisation. Schools are going to teach improvisation the way they teach science.
Oh, wow.
Or the way they teach writing. We're going to learn to be more playful and be more inventive and constantly explore the potential of the instant.
Now, this, my friend, is an amazing thing because we've oozed into AI. So you've given us a service of AI. And I want to say most people think AI stands for artificial intelligence, but we know, studying McLuhan, it could stand for auditory imagination. That was T.S. Eliot. Or AI could be flipped into Marshall's integral awareness, IA. So before we go into more of the services of AI, tell me one disservice, because most people I talk to, whether they're intelligent hipsters like you and are educated, academics and playful pop culture critics, they hate AI. They're like, oh my God, it's horrible. Why is there such a backlash to this new technology when you just named a beautiful service? But before, tell me one disservice you think AI will have or does have.
I think Blade Runner is going to turn into more of a forecast than a fantasy.
Yeah.
I think someday we're going to be moving around with people who are not people, and we're going to have a tough time telling ourselves apart from the ones who are not us. and we're going to get deeply confused by that. I think that's
But
in fact, I
that's
would say this, that the DNA of AI has two spiraling threads, like the DNA of anything else. And one of those threads is going to be algorithmic, and the other is going to be humanistic, which is to say that we're using ourselves as the model that we want AI to aspire to becoming.
Yeah.
In more and more ways, especially anything to do with the Turing test.
Amazing, Bill. But you nailed it there by just saying, here's a disservice. Won't be able to tell the difference between forecasting and fantasy, like a la Blade Runner. It's almost like that T-shirt I saw at the Occupy movement. It said, "The Matrix was a documentary." you could wear a T-shirt. Blade Runner was a documentary. But here's what I want you to address on that, because this is specifically McLuhan. If that's a disservice, isn't that a perfect example of how do you flip a disservice into a service? Because if we're going to have trouble figuring out what's real and what's fantasy, won't that enable people to increase their critical thinking skills? So isn't that just another way to flip it as a disservice and go, wow, well,
it can be a service to us in terms of making us more aware of our humanity and more prizing of our humanity and more respective of our humanity.
yeah.
So that the more the machine becomes like us, the more we need to assert what we are that it can never be. That could be a flip to a service of this disservice.
Right. There you go. And is this what Marshall said? Because I always go back to this, but it sounds so easy to understand, but I'd love for you to suss it out. There is absolutely no inevitability as long as there is a willingness to contemplate what is happening.
That's not Kuhn, that's Whitehead.
Oh my God, are you
Whitehead's
kidding me?
Adventures and Ideas. And he always quotes, it's one of his favorite quotes from Whitehead.
But what does it mean? Why did Marshall love it? What does it basically mean?
It means that determinism is not a function, is only a function of the unawares and the sleepwalkers. That if we're willing to participate and look around and be attentive and be skillful at strategies and thinking about what we're doing, that there is no technological threat that we cannot handle. For example, the story by Edgar Allan Poe, Descent into the Maelstrom, where the sailor knows that he's going to go down with his ship, which is being sucked into a whirling vortex at sea, that he's going to be sucked down and die, and he knows it, and he notices that the previous ship went down, but all of its barrels came bobbing up to the surface, and he straps himself to a barrel. So when his boat goes down and he goes down, he comes back up again, and he's saved by a fisherman from another boat. And then he tells this story years and years later to another young sailor who his idea is that this may save you. And McLuhan's take on this one is there is no inevitability as long as there's a willingness to contemplate what is happening.
Yeah.
Learn the devices, learn what would threaten you, and turn that into a strategy to save you.
Yeah. Marshall says that I talked to David Byrne from the Talking Heads once. I says, he's a McLuhan freak. I says, have you read the introduction to Mechanical Bride, his first book? And he goes, I don't know. I don't think so. I says, That summarizes it all, because we're swirling around in an information overload. If we study the patterns, we can get comprehensive and swoop our way out of it. And he specifically says within the first 3-4 paragraphs of Mechanical Bride, descent into the maelstrom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of his best descriptions of that story.
It's
Right there
best.
in the preface to Mechanical Bride.
It's amazing. So here's world's first IA museum to explore the potentials of machine in LA. This is last week in the LA Times. It was in the Guardian too. And this guy is starting an AI art museum.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What a wonderful idea.
And here is his quote. I would love to hear you. AI is not a tool. AI is beyond a tool. Literally, in human history, we have never had intelligence as a technology.
AI has agency. That's its big difference. It is capable of generating surprises for us. And if you put it to work in art and in I'm not sure how well it will do at writing, but art, it's already done some very impressive work.
Wow. Because do you think we've had intelligence as a technology previous to AI?
Not in the way that AI is intelligent.
Yeah.
The closest we've come is reflections of our own intelligence, such as very, very clever. For example, the history of the computer up until AI has been a refraction of our own intelligence. For example, the ability to handle large numbers and multiply them and divide them and so on. What a calculator can do is a kind of intelligence, but very limited.
Really good, Bill, because I mean, how do you react? Don't you find your peer group, most McLuhanites, most your friends are anti-AI?
Oh yeah, very common. Very common. I think, and most people in the arts are suspicious of AI.
Yeah.
Most people in the humanities are suspicious of AI.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel good about something that is capable of overwhelming our best abilities and our best achievements. For example, what's going to happen to the Nobel Prizes 20, 30 years from now when they all are earned by AI more than by people? Are we going to give Nobel Prizes to AIs?
No, they'll do the opposite. Instead of Bob Dylan not showing up, AI will hire Bob Dylan to show up and get the prize. You know, if me and you met at a cocktail party, I love you, Bill, and I would say, tell me everything you know, Bill. And then I want to tell you everything I know. And that's what Bob Dylan said. He said, never tell anyone everything you know. and guess where he got that? From the Bible.
That was the Stanislavski method. You can give everything of yourself, but you got to hold back 10% when you're acting. Keep 10% off the stage. Keep 10% that's just you. Otherwise, you'll turn into the characters you act.
Says hold back 10% of yourself.
I think it was Stanislavski, so one of the great acting teachers.
Oh my God, I got to look that up, because you know why? I end every podcast pretty much with the question from, you know, the great Finnegan's Wake wannabe. His name is Thornton Wilder. And he said,
Wilder, yeah.
Yeah, skin of our
And
teeth like a direct, influence of, but from Finnegan's Wake. He says, "Art is confession, art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time."
that's good. That's very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, like hold back.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold back just a little. Okay, so in teaching people, enlightening people about the possibilities of AI, and I heard on the radio a great statement. It said, "Hey, AI is in its infant stage. It's our job to raise it well." I looked up AI on Wikipedia. It started in the 40s or 50s when I was born, but I mean, now it's flourishing. So here is Marshall, and I would love for you to attend this quote to AI's sensibility. Marshall said, "The past went that away. When faced with a totally new situation, we tend always to attach ourselves to the objects, to the flavor of the most recent past. We look at the present through a rear view mirror. We march backwards into the future."
We all live in Bonanza land.
What does that mean, Bill?
It means that we're all standing on the stern of the ship of life, looking at what we've been, where we've been. There's no way of looking at where we're going
Yeah,
unless you're an artist or a very perceptive character like McLuhan.
yeah. Then here's the other one. Poets and artists live on frontiers. They have no feedback, only feed forward. They have no identities. They are probes. So, what does the word feed forward mean? Did he make up that word?
I think in that context he did, yes.
What does he mean? They have no feedback, only feed forward. What does that mean?
That means that their sense of causality is based on what's to come, not what's already happened.
Yeah, what's to come?
They
That's
have
the
a very discerning sense of the present. They can discern what's going on. Their perceptive organs are highly developed.
Yeah. You mean the future ain't what it used to be?
The future is about to become whatever they can perceive.
Well, we've got about 15 more minutes, Bill, and I think we've probed AI pretty good, but I wanted to touch on, sense ratio shifting and how it applies to AI, because we were reading Finnegan's Wake, and page 12, he says, "We may see and hear nothing." And funny, because Joyce is turning a visual experience, an eye experience, into an ear experience, reading Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people. We may see and hear nothing, which probably caused Frank Zappa to probe Zen, and he said, "Nothing is what I want." Our friend Decio, who studies Finnegan's Wake from Brazil, he says, "The eye is space and the ear is time." So, how do you distinguish? Is that accurate in the McLuhan world? Eye is space, ear is time?
McLuhan is very big on acoustic space, but you create the space based on hearing, so that and time would be an element of acoustic space.
Yeah. But what is the eye then? Because, Dante eliminated time and space. If you want to go to paradise, you got to go beyond time and space. And, you know, the one of the Joyce scholars breaks it down like Sean is eye, Shem is ear. Sean is space, Shem is time, death versus life. You know, these binaries. In what is AI going to do with these binaries with sense ratio shifting of the eye in the ear?
AI is going to teach us binary everywhere. AI
Yeah,
is binary is a function of logic. Binary is a function of the left hemisphere of the brain.
yeah,
Binary divides and separates. Binary builds walls. Binary suggests that you're caught in an either-or situation, whereas analogy is a both-and situation.
yeah,
There's no, you're not trapped in the either-or of a binary with analogy.
yeah.
I think what we're going to learn from AI is how to think analogically and how to enter a world that McLuhan once described as the again. Give me a second. The intuitive man, the world of intuitive man.
Woo! Intuition, baby. I can dig
Intuition
it.
is the leading the element of the new culture we're about to
Yeah,
grow through AI.
yeah. Is that the opposite of Marshall saying to the blind, all things are sudden?
In the universe of the blind, the one-eyed man is a raving lunatic. That's another one of the things he said.
There you go. We're like dueling banjos, dueling aphorisms. Well, here it's fun, Bill. Bill, this is Niels Bohr. We must be clear that when it comes to atoms, language can be used only as in poetry.
That's an acknowledgement that analogy is the best way into understanding quantum physics.
Yeah. And that's this thing about truth. Niels Bohr says this thing: the opposite of a correct statement is a false statement, but the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth.
That's Blake.
Oh,
Blake
is it?
says that every great truth is it's equally true. Its opposite is equally true as the truth. I think Jung says that somewhere too.
Wow. You know, I wanted to delve into truth for a second before we split, and that's Shelby Foote said, a truth is not a fact until you love it. Or maybe he said a fact is not a truth until you love it. Maybe I got it backwards. Here we go. I found it. Okay. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
Shelby Foote?
Shelby Foote said that. Now, most people kind of go, what? They don't like that. But I'm curious your thought. I'm not saying it because I agree or disagree. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
Well, here's what's happening right now. There's a brilliant guy by the name of Andre Mir who's written the best post-McLuhan book that I've read yet. And it's called, here, I'll show it to you.
And you spell that last name how?
MIR.
Okay, Andre Mir's book, Digital Future in the Rearview Mirror. Thank you.
Right. I wrote a review in New Explorations where you published that piece on can art prevent war? Yeah. And I have a question for you later when we have some time.
Okay.
Has art ever prevented war?
Yeah. Heck, can art ever prevent war? Yeah. Yeah. I can answer that. But what was the insight you got from Andre Mir in Digital Future book?
Basically, his study is based on McLuhan's insight that history based on, as we enter the age of post-literacy, that we're retribalizing ourselves electronically. We're going through the ancient process of literacy backwards. History is a
you walk forward in life, but in order to understand it, you got to walk backwards. Is that what you're saying?
well, that history itself is moving in a kind of reversal of itself. It's like the word poop or
You mean the word spells itself forward and backwards?
yes. What's that called again?
Don't know, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. But that's interesting. Yeah, that's the great McLuhan line is diaper is repaid backward. Diaper is
Right.
repaid. Like here you go. And people don't realize shit is fertilizer. It makes the world grow, And in Finnegan's Wake, he uses his shit to write on his skin. Okay, but Digital Future Book. I'm going to look into that. Andre Mir. Do you know this guy?
Oh yeah, he's a Russian journalist who moved to Toronto in 2014 with his family, and
Well,
he's been working.
hook me up. I want to have him on my podcast.
I asked him if he'd do an interview with you, and he said his English is too bad.
Oh, I
the,
just tell him I just interviewed the guy who translated Finnegan's Wake into Russian. I just interviewed a Ukrainian guy yesterday. No, that it's all right. We get through it. It's more fun.
he's
Yeah, but
brilliant.
give him another poke, another encouragement. Say, don't worry. It's about having fun. Don't worry about the English. And I think I asked him. Oh yeah, I did. I said I'll send you the questions and you can write them out. But anyways, so here's to answer your question, Bill. Is can art stop war? Is rooted in the fact that Finnegan's Wake is a manifesto, anti-war manifesto in a lot of ways. And blah, 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 giving examples and all that. But it really is rooted in Maria Gambudis, the archaeologist who wanted to kind of prove that we're not hardwired to be violent or have warfare. We're hardwired more to have cooperation. So if you go and study the goddess cultures, then you realize matriarchy is not quite the word you want. Matristic civilization is the word you're talking about, the two words. Matristic civilization is women give birth. They don't give destruction, they give life. That's what humans are here to be, cooperating and giving life. Riane Eisler studied Maria Gambudis and wrote the book Chalice and the Blade, and she talks about it as partnership. So the basic thing is we're more hardwired to be cooperative. So why don't we accentuate that rather than war? The history of cinema, 130 years, is the history of warfare. The history of literature is a lot about warfare. Why don't we emphasize the feminine, the right, not the left hemisphere linear, but more integrating the right and the left to be positive and promote peace? So I don't know if that's answered your question, but what was your question, Ken? Go ahead.
What I was going to say about Mir's book, I didn't get to it.
Okay, so go ahead. All right.
Is that he does a wonderful job of describing what kind of a civilization we're building right now as we move from the analytical to the intuitive.
Yeah.
From the left brain dominant, which is very much aggressive and war oriented, and conquest oriented, and control oriented, and dominance oriented, to a more cooperative and let's say a more feminine based
matristic. It's called matristic civilization.
A matristic civilization, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's a brilliant painting of the tapestry of what that kind of civilization is going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, Bill, because we had parallel universe going there. And you brought up Andre, and then you asked me my question about my article, and then they came together. It's like the corpus callosum. It's how do you integrate the right and the left? It's not like, oh, we have to be more right now. We have to be more intuitive. It's that how do you integrate the left and the right, that corpus callosum, and keep that. That's why women know and men suppose, because they can integrate better. But that's like a big question. Did Marshall say the medium is the message, his most famous aphorism, medium is a massage, as a poke? I mean, me and Clinton did a 22-minute trying to explain this, that Marshall knew that content is as important as form. He knows the medium and the message are both important, but he emphasized the form because people have ignored it so much. So he wasn't saying, people get it wrong, in my opinion and others. He wasn't saying the medium is more important than the message. He's saying they're both important, but I'm going to emphasize the medium because you don't understand that form is important. What do you think of that?
I think his great discovery, which happened in the early months of 1951, when he read Innes for the first time, he read one of the essays in Bias of Communication.
Yeah.
I think his discovery at that moment was as important historically as Archimedes' discovery that whatever gets displaced from a bathtub and winds up spilling over onto the floor is the best measurement of the bulk of any object or anyone's body. This is
Yeah.
before they had ways of measuring weight or bulk or anything. And Archimedes went racing down the streets of Athens, shouting, "Eureka, Eureka, Eureka," not making that discovery. He forgot to add his toga when he went running outside. So he's famous for having done that. And I think McLuhan discovering Innes is just as important. And the great thing he discovered in Innes was the role of the media forms in history.
Yeah.
Not just the forms we think about with television and print, but going back to the alphabet and other medium. And any medium is its form. So that media forms became the dominant analog in his thinking for a long time.
Yeah.
For his whole career.
But wasn't he indeed aware that content is important? That, he got all his content from books. He knew that the content of the book was important. It wasn't just the act of reading the book.
No, he was very attuned to content. For example, Mechanical Bride is all about the content of the ads.
Yeah.
And Mechanical Bride is an extension and continuation of a book by Leavis, who was one of his teachers in Cambridge.
Right.
A book Leavis wrote in 1924 about culture, popular culture, and the forms it takes on, and how you apply literary criticism to detective novels, for that matter,
Yeah.
and other things like that. So he was very much rooted in that world of analyzing content, and what he made his big leap was going from applying the methods of analyzing content to analyzing form, so that he looked on the whole history of technology in terms of its forms.
Brilliant, Bill. That was really well done. Did his teachers at Cambridge turn him on to the wake, basically? That's what I heard also. Maybe I'm
Well,
wrong.
they turned him on to Joyce, but Joyce
Yeah.
hadn't written the Wake in 1935 and 1934 when he was at Cambridge. The Wake was published in 41, I believe, huh?
No, 39. So
39.
they turned him on to Joyce between 34 and 35. Then he found the Wake in 39.
Yeah, he was in teaching in St. Louis when he found the Wake.
Wow, that's heavy. Okay, so we're going to close out now, Bill. We got to do part 82 in a couple weeks because this is like breathing for me, man. I'm like breathing clean ocean air with you. 2 questions. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
My biggest question is whether AI will enable us to grow or grow more stupid.
Yeah.
And I can't answer that, and you can't answer that. It'll take a couple hundred years to answer that.
Yeah,
Have you
well, we
read
better.
the novel? Have you read the novel Mockingbird by Walter Tevis?
No, I'll look into it. Thank you. What's it about?
It's about AI making us more stupid. And one man who rediscovers reading in the midst of universal illiteracy and universal stupidity and universal laziness and the loss of all aspiration and all drive and all potential human growth, a world that everybody just lies back and takes soporifics and slow-acting antidepressants and smokes a lot of weed, and nothing goes on in that world except occasional suicides because people are so bored.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to call it herbal ignorant. I used to call it herbal knowledge. Now I call it herbal ignorance.
Well, there you go. And anyway, the robots who are all look like humans and can only be distinguished because they have different colored earlobes are initially designed to assist people, but over a century or two become their policemen, and they control people,
Yeah.
and nobody challenges that.
Wow. Okay, Bill, last thing. Thank you once again. It's been truly enlightening. I love you dearly. How has your McLuhan probing, your marshalling machine shaped your behavior?
It's kept me off the streets.
Now that was a funny answer. Give me a serious one.
Well, I think I've gotten to know the man a lot better,
Yeah.
and I think I have a entree to some of his more subtle ways of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Subtlety. That's Billy Wilder said, make the subtleties obvious.
Well,
I think
he sure did that in Double Indemnity, didn't he?
I know, but I mean, isn't that Marshall sort of did that too? He made his subtleties obvious. Because people chalk him off, and they go, oh, he's a charlatan. He's like, yeah, that's the whole point. If he makes you laugh, you might learn something. Why does a bee, how does it go? Why does a bee hum? Because it doesn't know the words.
Right. Arthur Schlesinger said that McLuhan presents himself as a charlatan for reasons of his own, but he certainly is no charlatan.
Wow. Well, I think Donald Thiel nails it. He said he teased people to believe his percepts were concepts.
If you have his book of letters, page 448, he wrote me a very angry letter in 1970, 1971.
You mean Marshall McLuhan's Book of Letters, page 448?
Yes. The
Yeah,
letters.
okay, go ahead.
I had written a book called The Post-Industrial Prophets, where I sent him the chapters on him and on Innes, and I wanted his thoughts on both. And he sent me there a very angry letter, which is included in that book on page 448.
I'll
He
look it up.
says, I work with percepts, not concepts. I don't write theories.
Yeah.
All my ideas are probes, not theories.
Yeah.
And he blasted me for treating his percepts as concepts and his probes as theories. So I would stand by what I said about those today, because they are theories, and they
Yeah.
I was really offended when he said that back in those days.
But you know, the point of life is to forgive. So I hope you forgave him, because if you hold a grudge, it's your burden. It's like Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the smell the flower gives off when the foot steps on it. But then I also know if you complain and you gossip, you live longer. One never knows, does one? Bill, thank you for your time and energy. We'll have to set up another one. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Oh, anytime, Jerry. I love these.
It's amazing, Bill. So much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.